This is a conversation with David Oyen for the Kentucky Marriage Equality and Religious Liberty Oral History Project. We are in the studio room of Breckenridge Hall on Morehead State's campus, located in Rowan County, Kentucky. It is 2:08 p.m., June 13th. My name is Dakota Barr. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to meet with me, David.
No problem.
I'd like to first start with some biographical information, such as where you were born and where you grew up.
Well, I was born in Boise, Idaho, but I have no recollection of that. Lived for a while in Danville, Illinois, but mostly grew up in Granite City, Illinois, which is right across the river from St. Louis, right across Mississippi River from St. Louis, that is.
If you don't care, just tell me a little about your childhood.
My childhood. Well, I feel like it was, I don't know if it's unusual or anything. My parents are both teachers. They happen to both be music teachers. So that was a big part of my life. The whole time growing up, I started playing the piano when I was 7, went into band when I was in the 5th grade, and really was involved with music my whole childhood. And I mean, it's kind of what I do now, but I feel like it's been a big part of my life through my entire life. Got a sister. We both, we were both involved in music, and that's really a lot of what I did. Not only as a strong interest, but just kept me busy socially. Basically, all my friends were people that I knew for various musical activities. And I wasn't somebody who did anything in sports other than be on a swim team because my parents made me. So I would do something that was somewhat physical. That, I don't know, that's a lot of what I did. Not sure what other kinds of things you're interested in for that.
What about your religious upbringing or ideological background?
Well, I can't say that I was unchurched. I think that's what people say sometimes. We went to church a little bit. Went to a Methodist church, and really we kind of left that when I was in middle of elementary school, and actually there was more of a sort of a family dispute with other people in the church at the time, and after that we didn't really go to church much. My mom became a choir director at a Presbyterian church later, but I didn't attend that church. Some of what I have an uncle who is very strict fundamentalist pastor, and so that was an influence in kind of just outside the immediate family. That was a little bit different. I think some people have that in a really strong sense in the immediate family. I didn't really feel that. I felt like get outside of the family or the household. It was a little bit of a stronger presence. So it was definitely an influence on my life. That kind of a fundamentalist worldview.
What do you do for a living?
I teach bassoon and music theory at Morehead State. I also do freelance playing the bassoon, and I teach also in the summer program in Iowa.
Now I'd like to know how you first became involved in the marriage equality movement.
How I first became involved in the marriage equality movement? Well, I got married to my husband, David Bryant, in August of 2014, and I hadn't really ever considered myself much of an activist. Other than writing to politicians and that sort of thing. But definitely wanted to get married, and we decided it was basically our 20th anniversary. So we wanted to do it then for that reason. It also happened to be the same week that the case went to the Sixth Circuit Court in Cincinnati from, I believe it was Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, and Michigan, disputing the marriage amendments. And I mean, I think with Kentucky it was disputing the amendments, but also I think it was going about the angle of recognizing marriages performed in other states. I'm not sure it was trying to overturn the amendment so directly from Kentucky, but I think that I had the idea that at least the state amendment was going to be overturned the very week that we were going to get married, and it didn't happen to be the case. I believe actually it was 2 days before we got married that it failed. And I mean, ultimately that failure may have led to the Supreme Court decision, but it was definitely a downer. So then I think that I was always also got very upset when Governor Beshear decided to fight the ruling from the Louisville judge who was going to overturn the marriage amendment, or I don't even remember if it was exactly that, or just allowing marriages from other states to stand. And I think really, as far as getting started with it, really writing letters, trying to get involved in one way or another, that was the start. So then, of course, when Kim Davis was denying couples marriage licenses in Rowan County, that was where it became quite a bit more active for me. And I think when I was June 26th last year, when the Supreme Court decision went down, I was in Iowa. I was teaching at Lutheran Summer Music, where I do the 4-week camp every year. So I didn't really get started in the protests until August, until after that. But that spurred me on to take a more active role and actually show up and not just sit at my computer and type.
How did you first react when you heard the Supreme Court's decision that marriage equality was the law of the land?
Oh, it was overwhelming. I think that I was expecting it because of just the way everything was lining up. I think there was very little chance that it wasn't going to go the way it did. But I really did feel I was affected by it emotionally, as well as just having the fact that my marriage was then recognized of completely 100% across the board. And I've been with my husband for 20 years, and we've been at various times, he was in graduate school at UK 10 years ago, working on master's in library science, and I could do absolutely nothing to get him on my insurance, for example, here at Morehead State at the time. And now, or excuse me, a year ago, before the decision came down, it was possible to get him on my insurance. Didn't need to anymore, but it was a much greater expense than would be for a married spouse, a recognized marriage, and then it was taxed as a benefit. And I mean, things like that, although it's not everything, it's all these different benefits, you can really feel the legal recognition. And it's an acknowledgement that goes beyond just a piece of paper.
So even though you were already married yourself, the Supreme Court decision did have a...
It did, yes. It absolutely did have an effect in my everyday life.
When you first heard that the Rowan County Clerk, Kim Davis, wasn't going to issue marriage licenses to either straight or gay couples. How did you react?
Well, it was a big. My first reaction was hopefully not to be have too much of a panic, because it was, I believe, really within a day or two. It was, I read in the Herald Leader or online that there were a certain number of county clerks that were not issuing any marriage licenses, but it seemed like day by day there were fewer and fewer. I think Lawrence County and Montgomery County, for the first couple of days, they weren't issuing marriage licenses, and it wasn't just a matter of, I think some of them were saying they weren't exactly sure how to do it administratively, but there was a religious objection. But within a few days, most of them backed down. And I remember asking a friend of mine who was from Iowa about how things went in Iowa, because they were one of the first states to allow same-sex marriage. And he said that it was just within a couple of weeks that they had a few county clerks objecting, but that didn't last long, so it was really a wait and see. And then some of the videos came out that were circulating, and it became pretty clear that Kim Davis was just really set in this, and it was not just flash in the pan. And it was very upsetting. It felt like she treated the couples with no respect, and so I was just, within a week, I was furious. But I was just holding out for a few days just to see if this was going to pass.
Why do you believe that Rowan County was the exception in terms of waiting it out?
Well, it's hard to say. I think that part of me has this idea that the Liberty Council was in touch with county clerks and was looking for somebody who would be their holdout. And Kim Davis was somebody who would have been in that category, and Rowan County is a place that, if you see in election maps, you'll see a dot of blue in the sea of red, and we're often that dot of blue. So I think, with the university being here, there's not only university people, but there's more of a LGBT community. So it's a place where holding out would have had more of an impact than, say, in Casey County or Whitley County, where there may not be as much of a community. But I don't know if there was any kind of advanced planning on that. But I think that clearly her religious beliefs are such that she's felt really adamant about it, to the point of being allowed to, or getting herself put in prison for a few days.
Do you consider Morehead your home?
I do. It's a little bit. I also have to put a little bit of an explanation to that, because sometimes it's hard to feel that way. I feel like there's a definite separation in people's minds between people associated with the university who come here from somewhere else, even if it's not that far away, and people who've been here their whole lives and feel like there's a certain amount of distrust. So I don't know that I've ever felt like people from here really consider me a part of the town. But I've been here for the most part since '99. Had a couple of years where we lived in Lexington while David was in grad school, and I just drove back and forth. But this is really the longest I've ever lived in one place. And a lot of people. So I think that from that standpoint, yes, in a big way, for sure. But I don't necessarily feel 100% secure in that.
Did the fact these events took place in a setting you would call home have an effect on your feelings towards the matter?
Yes, and that's also complicated because I feel like I feel a little bit less of a part of the community when there's such a division, and I'm not actually so sure that a majority of people who aren't associated with the university agree with Kim Davis, but at the same time, I've actually felt like I've gained more of a sense of community from meeting all the people that have protested her and have getting a little bit, getting to know a few more people who are a bit more like-minded. So it's a little complicated.
So do you think these events brought people closer together or further apart?
It brought some people closer together and brought some people further apart. I feel like, with the people who were on the anti Kim Davis band, it was definitely more of a feeling of coming together toward a common goal, but I feel like the people who are sympathize with Kim Davis there was less of a tendency to speak out, perhaps, in the past, as much as there might be now. And they may not have approved of people that were different from them. But now that the tube of toothpaste is open, it's sort of that sort of division, I think, is a little bit more clear.
After you heard that the Rowan County Clerk wasn't issuing marriage licenses, what was your immediate action?
My immediate action was not active because I was like 700 miles away. It was mostly to getting involved with the Facebook group of Rowan County Rights Coalition and just sort of keeping track of what's going on. Really, for like about 5 weeks before I was able to actually show up at the courthouse, and even then I wasn't in town a lot. So, but also, so the fact that I wasn't in town, it was a lot of writing. And I did, beyond just being on Facebook and keeping track of what's going on with the protests, I did write all the politicians that I could and try to make sure that somebody's voice was being heard, whether they were paying attention to it or not.
Did you participate in any of the protests?
I did, yes, mostly in August, and the rally at the end of the month, and there were around the time in September where Kim Davis and the deputy clerks had to testify that week and those first few weeks of September, and when marriage licenses were first being issued, and some of the folks from out of town, protesters from out of town, came in. I was there quite a bit.
So did you participate in any of the satellite protests, such as Ashland or Covington?
I did not. I think that, some of those were when I was out of town. They had some of the court hearings, and the one where all the deputy clerks had to testify was the day I had to teach. So.
What was your immediate goal with the protests?
I think it was to, ideally, it would be would have been to get Kim Davis to change her course of action, whether it was realistic or not. Just wear her down. But more realistically, it was showing that there are people who didn't agree with what was going on. Also, mostly also to support the couples that were wanting to get married.
What was the environment like at the protest you participated at?
The environment was, well, when things were, when it was only the people that were protesting Kim Davis, things were pretty great, and I thought, it was a really nice, relaxed atmosphere, and just people pretty much pulling together for the common good. I felt when some of the people came in from out of town, it just depended on, things turned pretty ugly, and I feel like even when it was just Randy Smith, the pastor from the area here, it didn't, although the rhetoric wasn't great, it didn't feel as charged. Some of the people that came in from North Carolina and Colorado, I think, just from these various places, seemed like they weren't necessarily modeled after Westboro Baptist Church, but it was, there was a real attempt to shock, a lot of talks about sexual acts and getting on a bullhorn and being a little bit more aggressive than I think the local people had been. I felt like when the trucks came in from out of town with all the signage and pictures on them and were just driving around town, that felt very charged, and I didn't necessarily feel like I was in any kind of physical danger, but it just it cast a completely different light on things, and felt very negative.
How did you combat that negativity?
I didn't very well, but I think it was trying to just stay with the people that were protesting her. I felt like that sort of seeing that kind of thing. I didn't feel like I'd really been bullied a lot as a child. I felt like there were a few things in the locker room, and mostly listening to people talk about gays and being really like, I'm going to beat people up. It wasn't it was people that it was again kind of passive, and it wasn't people actively trying to hurt anybody, but it did kind of trigger some feelings from like I felt like I was in middle school listening to a bunch of thugs, and I guess with my going back to my childhood, thinking about like the religious background. I mean, I can't say that I'm particularly religious, but I know enough to have interpretations of the Bible and understand. I know a lot of people that are involved with mainstream denominations, Episcopalian, Lutheran, and even like Unitarian. It's not a Christian denomination, but I just don't understand people that look at a particular version of the Bible and want to take every word literally, considering everything that they're going to look at as a translation, and they don't have any kind of patience or openness to consider that their translation may not even be accurate. So it's just kind of emotionally draining for me. I kind of took it maybe more seriously than I needed to even.
Would you consider the tactics of the protest to be effective?
I think that the tactics of the protest were, I think they were effective in that I believe they stayed positive. And even if, it took a while to get the court order for licenses to be issued. I don't know if the protests hadn't taken place, whether there would have been so much pressure. I think that the Judge Bunning felt pressure to act, and clearly I believe personally that he acted just based on the law, and it wasn't pressured in the sense of the public was just pressuring him to act in a certain way, but it's the only way he could act. I don't know that. I guess I'm just kind of trying to think about two sides of the issue, and I'm not sure I have another side. I think they were effective. I think there were a few moments where it was a little contentious, and there's a part of there was a rally where somebody hung a orange jumpsuit like doing Kim Davis in effigy, and there was people were that was controversial, at least among protesters, and that's to take it down, and that sort of thing. And I think that some people wanted to go further and be a little bit meaner than than other people. Some people, then it was kind of the guidelines were, but I think that's probably for the best, so that it didn't become a bullying Kim Davis movement.
Would you have done anything differently?
Can't say that I would have, no. I don't think so.
Do you believe you made a difference in the protests?
I don't know. I think that everybody who was there made a difference for sure. I don't know how much of a difference I made, but I think at least somebody being there, well, then yes.
You said you joined an organization on Facebook because of the protests. Can you elaborate on that a little?
Well, the organization was Rowan County Rights Coalition, and it was formed to counter what was coming out of the county clerk's office. And I think even not with the people that founded it, it was some of the tactics weren't necessarily always agreed on, but this is where the protests actually kind of got started. The organization got started. People were keeping in touch with each other about what was going on at the courthouse, what was going on in the media, and not only the county courthouse, but also the district or the federal court in Ashland, and also in Northern Kentucky, and on to Cincinnati as well, the Sixth Circuit, when things went to that far. A lot of it was just making sure that all activities were organized well in that iteration of it, and communication. So, it's become a little bit, interested in just like the beginnings of it, or kind of how it continued. And then once the decision was handed down that the county clerk's office was to start issuing marriage licenses, whether Kim Davis had her signature on it or not, and Brian Mason, the deputy clerk, began issuing licenses, and he'd kind of been dubbed the marriage license deputy. The immediate goal of the group was reached. So beyond that, people wanted to continue the group to serve as a rights organization for the area. And there were several meetings. There was an organizational meeting with a very hastily constructed constitution that was very quickly ratified. And things moved actually probably way too quickly at that point. And there was a lot of, officers were elected, and decisions were made without a lot of consultation from one person to another, and resulted, unfortunately, in what did it result in? There were some power struggles, and because of one of the power struggles, there was a huge blow up. So, which caused one of the administrators to join with another administrator, and somehow, I don't know all the details. I've heard from various sources, and I don't think anybody but the people who did it were completely clear on it, but the original Facebook group was removed. And which, although you can't say that we had over 1,000 actual active members, there are over 1,000 people who were a member of that Facebook group. Lots of photos, videos, all kinds of, every post, everything was dismantled and taken off. So after that, it became an organization that existed outside of Facebook, and the people who were left have been carrying on.
Are you still active in that organization today?
I am still active in Rowan County Rights Coalition.
And what kind of activities are they doing?
We have been, the big activity that we're doing right now is organizing the Pride Festival on August 27th. Beyond that, there have been some ongoing community activities. There's been captioned movies in the movie theater for the deaf and hard of hearing, and there's been also activity in nursing home, working with there's reading to patients at the nursing home, and also organizing bingo and other activities for people in the nursing home. That's been part of the inclusiveness committee, also a movie night, but there's been some political activity, although it has been limited. There have been Rowan County Rights Coalition has sent representatives to Fairness Rally in February or March. Also, participated. I was able to go in January to the Kentuckians for the Commonwealth rally that was also organized in conjunction with the Fairness Coalition. To speak to some legislators and take part in the rally that they organized. There was also a I'm not remembering the name of the group. There's a feminist group rally that took place, that sort of thing. But really, for the last few months, the organization has been, the latest version of it has been going since December. The last couple of months have really been focused on the Pride Festival in August.
And do you think that this organization is necessary in our community?
I do think it's necessary in the community. I think that we have a mayor who has posted online, especially posts that are anti-trans, really clearly. There's no doubt about how that is, and somebody needs to be there to take him to task for that sort of thing, especially when there's a fairness ordinance, whether it really has teeth or not. And he's supposed to be the fairness officer. taking to task for anti-trans language when he's supposed to be the person who's kind of looking out for that community within, or every community, or every segment of the community in Morehead. So that's not the only issue. I think the things like the Pride Festival, an organization to organize something like that is important. I think there's been some debate about whether it should be called Rowan County Rights Coalition, since really the original, not intent of the group, but the first goal and only goal that was originally set out from that group has been reached. But whether it's called Rowan County Rights Coalition or not, I think a group like that is necessary.
Going back to the county clerk, she cited her religion for not issuing the marriage licenses. With that being said, do you think that she best represented the cause of religious liberty?
I don't think that she best represented the cause of religious liberty, but I may also not have the same idea of what religious liberty is. I feel that the intent of religious liberty is to allow people to worship the way they want to or not. And it is a private matter. I think that imposing one's religious values on another person as a public official is actually illegal. So I don't personally believe that she knows what the intent of religious liberty is. And I mean, it's obviously a concept in politics and religion right now, and she's going to one particular side of that. Then I don't think that side of it is really valid from a constitutional standpoint.
Do you believe that she deserved to be imprisoned?
I do. I think that, yes, I think I do believe that she deserved to be in prison. I believe that the right decision was made. I think there were probably other ways that could have been done. I think that the judge mentioned that if she were fined, organizations would raise money to pay the fine, and she wouldn't actually be suffering in any way for that. And not that she'd be suffering, but it's consequence of breaking the law. She didn't provide the service that she had taken an oath to provide, so she broke the law. She needed to be have some kind of a consequence.
And do you believe her punishment was adequate?
I think it was adequate. I don't know that I think there were, it's a difficult thing. I think that there were marriage licenses that she altered, marriage licenses that had been issued while she was in prison. And she altered a public document after the fact. And I think that is also illegal. I don't know exactly what I feel like that portion of the consequences that she received was adequate. I don't think she needed to have been thrown into jail indefinitely. But I think there are laws that have been broken that serious enough, and I think you'd have to kind of go and look at the statutes to make sure. I mean, I'd have to look at the exact statutes, and I know that others have done so and have listed them, but there are very specific circumstances where a public official may be impeached, and I believe that that's been reached. And from the standpoint that nobody's going after her for violating these statutes, then the consequences are not sufficient. I think that she should not be in office.
What went through your mind upon her release?
Well, I was not surprised because of the terms of her imprisonment. It was for obstruction of justice. I'm not sure exactly what it was. She violated a court order, and she made it clear that she had no intention of granting the licenses. Her deputies started granting the licenses in her absence, and even though she was not intending to sign them herself, they were being granted, so I wasn't surprised. I was expecting it, but I was disgusted, though, that the first thing that happened is that she triumphantly entered a rally that was organized by Mike Huckabee, and basically received a hero's welcome and was all over the news for weeks. And I know that, if you look at even skits on SNL, she was spoofed. But for the people who have her interpretation of religious liberty, she's a hero. And that disgusts me.
What were your thoughts on the reactions of your local elected officials?
I wish that I think that some of them were pretty clear in saying that they felt that she should grant the licenses, but were pretty tepid in the way they expressed it, and they didn't really show a lot of empathy for the couples. There was some, but I think that they could have done more. So, and I feel like, I don't know exactly what was going on with them, and I know that I'm sure they were in pretty close contact with the governor, and it was tricky because they were being sued. There was Kim Davis was suing the governor. They were, I think, there was a lot of involvement in that that went beyond what was going on on the ground. But there didn't seem to be a lot of pressure on her to do her job. So it was disappointing.
What about the thoughts of the mass media and really big political leaders in America?
I felt like they covered it. They really covered it. They can't act like they ignored the story. And there was a lot of, I feel like, looking at the 24-hour news cycle, some of the cable news networks were covering it fairly closely, especially as the week before and after she was sent to prison. it was all over. And that was, I'm glad it came to light. It was one of those things where there's always some big story. There's often some big story, and it's all people can talk about for a while. And then it gets kind of tuned out. I didn't think they spoke occasionally to people that were protesting. Didn't do a whole lot with that. I don't think, it's been a minute. I don't know that they always gave the best, gave a clear impression of what people in town actually felt about the situation, which is unfortunate. But I don't think they were unfair.
Do you believe it deserved the media attention it received?
I think it deserved the media attention it received. I don't know that it definitely wasn't the only flashpoint in the country. There are entire regions of Alabama where they were showing maps of places where you could and could not get marriage licenses in Alabama, and if you look at it, it looked like half the state. I don't know if it was helpful for the cause the anti-Kim Davis cause to have it as quite as strongly in the news. It might have been given more ammunition to people that were more sympathetic to her. I can't say exactly why our governor was elected, but I think that the pro-Kim Davis voices were definitely heard in that election. So, yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on the reactions of federal political leaders?
Well, I felt like there wasn't a lot of reaction at the top. I don't know that, I know that Attorney General Loretta Lynch was pretty clear. She was saying at least that the situation was being monitored. She was pretty adamant in her, and I think most everybody that I follow going into on the federal level were pretty clear that they should that a public official should be should be acting not on her religious beliefs but on the duties of her job. And I think the only exception to that would have been some of the presidential candidates that were of the 17 Republican candidates who were running at the time. I think there are only a couple that were saying that she should just do her job, John Kasich being one of them. There really weren't that many, I think, sitting senators that felt that she should have a right to her religious objection to it. Ted Cruz, I suppose. Some of the others that believe the way he does.
What are your thoughts on the outcomes of either the religious liberty movement or the marriage equality movement?
Well, clearly, I think that the marriage equality movement has been, really successful and started kind of in 2012 when Minnesota and Maine, I believe. I know Minnesota for sure because I know a couple of the people that were involved in that state's movement. They actually got there was a marriage amendment on the ballot in Minnesota, for example, and it was defeated. It was the first one in the country that was defeated by the voters. And since that time, clearly, I mean, by the time the Supreme Court acted, I believe 35 states had gone to allow same-sex marriage. But now, after the Supreme Court decision, it's a matter of vigilance and just making sure that these rights aren't eroded, or they're just clearly that they're you can get married wherever you want, not just if your local officials want you to. A new president can't just do something by executive order, or I think it's important that the organization still exists. Just in not that you can fight a Supreme Court justice, but got to be careful that don't have people in office that are going to stack the deck on the Supreme Court to find a way to remove the right to marriage. And I'm not actually sure how that would be possible, even with a different court, but I think having that kind of a court at least sets that environment, and it's more likely that that there will be more exceptions for religious reasons. And as far as the religious liberty movement goes, I just have my views on what religious liberty is, and it's a personal, private thing, and it's not something that is supposed to work its way into our laws.
Would you consider your efforts in the protest to be a success or a failure?
My personal efforts?
The efforts of the whole.
I do consider the efforts of the protest to be a success. I think that without it, we would be, had we not protested, Rowan County would not be allowing marriage, and we would not have marriage licenses in this county. I mean, it had to be done somewhere. And perhaps the flashpoint would have been somewhere else, but people would not have it just wouldn't have been right to let it go. And I mean, the argument was made back then, well, we could drive 30 minutes to another county and get a license. Well, some people maybe can't, and why should they have to? It's just one of those things. It's the rights that all people have, and should be evenly applied. And I think we needed to protest, and it was a success.
Would you say this experience has changed you?
Yes, I think this experience has changed me. I feel like actually, I do feel like I'm a whole lot more likely to speak my mind. It's pretty much with anybody about some of these topics, and not that I was like in the closet or anything before, but I feel like there were more situations where I just might have held my tongue, and I think that is often not helpful. And I mean, I'm a very tactful person. I'm not like just somebody who's going to go off. But yeah, I think that I'm more likely to be to speak my mind, and also just to get more politically active, and not just like writing my congressman, but actually showing up to things.
Would you regard the debate over religious liberty or marriage equality to be over?
Well, I think as long as there are very public religious leaders that are going to be debating marriage equality, it's not going to be over. From a legal standpoint, it might be over, but I don't think it's ever going to be completely over from the standpoint. And I mean, it's fine because I know that people are going to believe what they want to believe, and also, you know, the fact that it can drive people to violence is going to be a reason to make sure that there's not just one side of the debate that's getting out there. And I think it's the same thing for religious liberty. As long as there are different opinions about what that means, then there's going to be a debate.
More so than marriage equality, but do you think that the debate over religious liberty and LGBTQ equality is over?
No, I do not. And I think we don't have we've got that's the old saying, you can get married on Sunday and fired on Monday. And so there's no, because you got married on Sunday. And then there's no Employment Non-Discrimination Act. I think that's important. And really, with the makeup of Congress, it's unlikely to happen in the near future unless things flip a little bit in November. And I know that with the last time the Obama administration, there was an attempt to put an Employment Non-Discrimination Act through. It kind of failed because the legislators were not ready to add the gender expression and transgender rights to that bill. And I think that's very, that's a big issue right now. There's these bathroom bills that are going around that are just turned into a gigantic panic for a certain segment of the population. So this has been a huge issue. It's definitely not over.
How do you plan to combat these inequalities?
Well, I've been personally, it's been actually trying to be more direct with communication with legislators, and I think, Rocky Adkins actually knows my name now, which isn't surprising since he's very active in the community and he knows a lot of people. But being in direct communication with our representatives and trying to not just write people.
Okay. I guess that wraps it up. Are there any more comments or thoughts you'd like to add?
I don't know. Right now, I'm kind of in a bit of a state of shock because of everything that happened in Orlando. So I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around that. I'm sure that's we're going to kind of figure out what kind of role religion played in that, if any. We may not, but yeah, that's a whole thing.
Okay.
Mm.
Well, I'd like to thank you for agreeing to speak with me today, David, and you have a great day.
All right, thank you.